Now, Prime Minister Julia Gillard is promising almost $10 billion for regional programs after clinging to power with the support of two independents.
However, some argue the extra money won't make much difference at all to regional Australia. Warren Truss is the leader of the National Party and he joins us now from Canberra. Mr Truss, thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning.
Surely, as the leader of the country of the bush, you've got to be happy with this $10 billion rural and regional assistance package?
Well, most of the money, $6 billion of it, comes over a period of 10 years, so it'll only just trickle around regional Australia, and it comes from the mining tax, a tax that will cost thousands of jobs in regional Australia. So regional Australia will be overall the loser from this package because we will lose the economic opportunities which the mining tax will destroy. When you look to the rest of the package, there's a little bit of money for education and health, although it seems to just be redirected money. That compares very unfavourably with the commitments that the Coalition made during the election campaign. $1 billion for a new education fund that was going to redress the imbalance between country and city outcomes in relation to education. The health funding is less than we had committed by way of new initiatives in regional Australia to boost the workforce, to bring in local hospital boards and better manage our state hospitals, and indeed our offer to take over significant additional funding responsibilities for hospitals. So I think regional Australians have a lost opportunity here. Unfortunately, it'll be more of the same from Labor. A cabinet still dominated by city people and with a Prime Minister who's shown no real interest in regional Australia at all in her time in office.
But surely this is money, whether it's more or less than what the Coalition promised. This is money going to country hospitals, country schools. You won't deny country communities that benefit, will you?
Well, we want everything that we can possibly get in regional Australia. However, what I'm saying is that the Coalition actually took a more ambitious program to the people at election time. We offered more during the days of these negotiations, and it certainly will mean that this deal will result in less slowing to regional Australia than would have happened had a Coalition government been elected.
What's your take on the big decision yesterday by former National Party, both members and MPs, Rob Oakeshott and Tony Windsor, to support a minority Gillard government?
Well, we're disappointed, especially since Labor did so very poorly in regional Australia during the election. There were massive swings against them right around regional Australia. The national sitting members had an average swing to them of 6%. We won extra electorates. Indeed, this election was a massive rebuff to Labor in the regions. And so if the independents were looking for a direction from the voters of Australia, particularly the voters of regional Australia, as to how they should actually work to form a government, they could not possibly have chosen Labor.
Does the National Party feel some guilt about denying Tony Abbott the Prime Ministership, given there's been a lot of bad blood between members of your party and people like Tony Windsor that may have been one of the factors influencing his decision?
Well, Tony Windsor and Rob Oakeshott both said that those were not issues for them. Bob Katter, who of course has perhaps the highest profile antagonism towards me personally and towards the Nationals, he was prepared to overlook all of that in the interest of the country for the future and back the Coalition. So I don't think that was in the end a decisive issue. Mr Windsor indicated that he didn't want another election because the Coalition would win. Perhaps we were always starting from behind. Most observers said that. Tony Abbott put in a terrific effort to attract their attention and to put on the table an offer which more than matched anything that Labor was prepared to provide. We could have delivered a much better opportunity, a fair go for regional Australia, and I guess I'm particularly disappointed that opportunity now won't come.
Just picking up there on that comment made by Tony Windsor, what could be seen as a brutally candid comment about he didn't want to support the Coalition because he felt they'd win the election, therefore he'd been denied this position of influence he now has. What do you think of him saying something like that?
Well, it perhaps indicated that we always had a really tough job to try and persuade him to support a coalition government. You see, it's been 70 years since independents have had really any influence like this in our federal parliament. There's been this widespread view that one day they might be able to deliver something for their electorates to make up for the fact that they haven't been influential in policy making for 70 years. Now, obviously they wanted to seize that opportunity, but I think they misjudged the opportunity, and they could have done much better had they joined with us to deliver a new deal for regional Australia. But that's their decision. They will have to answer to their electorates, just as I have to answer to my electorate.
Is it now open season from the National Party's point of view on people like Rob Oakeshott and Tony Windsor?
No, we'll be concentrating on the failures of the Labor government. It is Labor that's
You'd really like to pick up their seats again, though, wouldn't you?
Well, we want to win every seat we can, but a seat won from Labor is just as valuable as a seat won from the independents. And Labor did really treat the country Australia brutally in the last election. $1 billion out of their very first budget, another $1 billion out of the next. They've wound back the Department of Agriculture. You know, there isn't a single cabinet minister that lives outside of a capital city. And regional Australia has been out of sight and out of mind from the Labor government. I hope Julia Gillard will learn something from this and will be prepared to actually try and engage with country people. Visit some towns where a 707 can't land. Go to a place where they want just one doctor, not just a super clinic, or they want a functioning school rather than just a great big trade training centre. Do something about the social injustice that has been created in this government, and some of it has been drifting along, I acknowledge, for some time. Do something about delivering a fair go for those people who live outside the capital city.
Equally, a lot of people in regional Australia, a lot of regional leaders, and when it came down to it, people like Tony Windsor and Rob Oakeshott happily embraced Labor's broadband policy. Will the coalition now go back to the drawing board and revamp its own broadband policy, because it is clearly one of the factors that has cost you government?
Well, I think we failed to sell our broadband plan. In reality, our plan was going to deliver fibre optic cable to regions. It was going to deliver probably less satellite but more wireless than Labor's. The fundamental difference between our plans was that we intended to use $6 billion to lever investment in areas where it otherwise wouldn't be economic, but investment by the private sector. Labor's proposal instead is to build a network funded entirely by the taxpayers, duplicating the services that are already in the big cities, but leaving at least 2 million Australians without any services at all, without their fibre optic cable. And so regional Australia was largely left out of Labor's deal. We proposed to build from the outside in, and that would have in fact meant that people who don't have services now would have been the first to get them under our arrangements, rather than simply just duplicating the services already available in the capital cities.
Warren Truss, thanks for your time this morning.
You're very welcome.